much for coming. My name is Liz, I'm from Loch Leven Equine Practice. So we've organised the session this evening for you guys to lead it. Okay, so normally we dictate what we talk about, but tonight is your guys' chance to grill all of our wonderful people on the panel. So I'm going to hand you over to James Oakton. Many of you will know James from the eventing circuit. James has evented for many years and has a great reputation for producing horses as well as riding. He's also responsible for organising Central Scotland horse trials and many, many other things. So I will pass you over to James and I will be wandering around with the microphone so you guys can ask questions. Over to you, James.
What I'm proposed to do is, first of all, I'll start with a question for the panel to ruminate on, and then that hopefully will then lead on to other things, and I'll pick out questions from the floor, and I'll try not to let them waffle, but I'm going to start by asking Ronnie, and then we'll pass it along the rest of the panel. When you're looking for a horse, what natural qualities are you looking for? And what areas can be improved with specific training?
To answer that question, I'm looking for something that will show jump, obviously. They come in all shapes and sizes. Ideally, you want something that has decent conformation, that it holds when you stay sound. When I'm buying a horse, I sometimes look at a horse, and occasionally they're good behind or they're good in front. And I find you can always improve a horse slightly in front. If the horse is very good behind, naturally good behind, sometimes a little bit low in front, it doesn't use its shoulder, by certain training, but doing things with, canter-poles, V-poles, things like that, you can improve the front. But you really want a horse, when I'm looking at a horse, I want something that wants to jump a fence and actually, enjoys the job. If you get something like that, then the job's a lot easier.
Yeah, good, excellent.
I would say that conformation is definitely the most important thing, because it's given to the horse by nature, you can't change it. You can teach horses a lot of things, but you can't change its conformation. And its feet, obviously. Not to be perfect. Again, there's only so much you can do to change the feet. For example, you really don't want one that's got one tiny little foot, one massive foot. But definitely conformation, because there's not a lot you can do to change it. The rest you can probably work on.
Good.
Yes, all these things, but I like the horse to have a nice nature, like it to be trainable, like it to be good looking, and not needle shy. Yeah, but I think, a nice person. A nice person.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with all of that. I think one of the most important things is the attitude that the horse has and the trainability of it. You can have all talent in the world, but if you can't, if it's not rideable and it's not trainable, you're never going to reach its full potential. So I think that's one of the most important things.
Thank you.
Not much more to add, really. Conformation, yes. A horse that is being able to handle safely and have needles put into various parts of its back legs is also an added bonus. When it comes to approach this from a slightly different avenue, if we come to what we look for at vettings, ultimately we will perform the same vetting no matter the use, the value of the intended horse. It is the same examination. But we're vetting it for the job, for that owner. So the conclusion we might come to for a 4-star event horse is different from a pleasure owner. But ultimately it's the way they're built, conformation and their manners, how well they are to handle. Hopefully we'll have time later. I've got a couple of slides later of various conformation points which have been mentioned by the other members already. And that will also explain why we look at these certain conformation faults. So we'll come back to that later in the talk.
Okay. Has anybody got any questions that they'd like to follow?
Could the guys have mics speaking to these ladies? It's not the sound isn't coming towards us, so could you pass the mic along?
Are both mics live?
Yeah.
Do we have to go through all of that again?
That one's died?
Yeah.
That definitely worked. Right, so we'll pass this one along then. There was a question.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, more towards the vets, when you vet horse, what's the most common thing that they fail for?
The most common thing that they feel, well, it depends on the horse. Lameness, I would say. You mean from the point of view of
Yeah.
lameness?
And lameness due to foot conformation or surface or... I know it's difficult to generalise.
Yeah, I mean, degenerative joint disease probably is the most common thing. And then again, it depends on the age of the horse and also what you're vetting it for. Eye defects occasionally are not so common, but I would say lameness probably is the most common thing that we would feel.
And unfortunately, it's always our fault when they are lame.
Split betting horses into two. If you're betting a young horse, it should actually be the most straightforward betting there is. Because either it can do the job because it hasn't got many miles on the clock, or there's something genetic about it which means it can't. It's when you get to the 10 to 16-year-olds where you have got some wear and tear, and therefore what degree of lameness can it cope with to do the job the owner wants. That's a difficult one to quantify how lameness is and the level of risk. But yeah, lameness is the most common reason to unfortunately walk away from a purchase.
I think one of the issues I have with the purchaser is we always ask what they want the horse for. So they say hacking, a little pleasure riding, silence. But I might actually like to do the occasional one-day event or show jumping at riding club level. And you go, well, that's not happy hacking. So it's really difficult sometimes. And I think as a purchaser, the client, you have to be aware that we need to know exactly what you want the horse for.
Any other questions?
Question for Hugh, because he knows the horse. He's 21, he's come out of the winter, probably having lost more weight than he's ever lost in the winter before. Having said that, he's probably your ideal weight right now.
Good.
But you know, what should I be feeding an elderly horse that's not doing a great deal of work now that we're coming into spring?
The nice thing about an expert panel that's very balanced is I can answer specific questions as far as the left.
As chairman, I was going to move that on.
Well, no, actually, just because Hugh knows the horse.
Yeah, start off, the most important thing to feed any horse is fibre. And once it is eating and it is digesting enough fibre, we can then think about adding to a diet. And oil-based energy sources is far, far better for any horse than cereal-based. But at a horse of that age, we want to be asking, is it eating the fibre? Can it convert the fibre into absorbable sizes by chewing it properly? And then is the gut working properly to absorb those nutrients? If all of that is happening, that's when we think about increasing the diet.
And what would you suggest?
As far as diet is concerned, say, make sure it's getting enough fibre, and if we're getting a good quality haylage, if we are feeding it some speedy meat, some chaff, if we're feeding it balancer, and we're still losing weight, I would make sure the blood's normal, the worming history is good, the teeth are good, and then we move on to adding on to the diet. And just straightforward vegetable oil.
Yeah, he's on all that, and just assume it's because he's come out of the winter, but I'll keep an eye on it and I'll be...
Or alternatively, one starts investigating if there are other reasons why elderly horses aren't doing it.
I'll just get Jane to, without making it a commercial break, but let's see if Jane's got anything to add.
My first question to you would be, have you had your teeth done?
Oh yes.
Regularly wormed?
Yes.
How many drugs have you got on? Okay, it's quite often that people overlook their management and people are very quick to blame the feed. Oh, he's lost weight, it must be the feed. Not necessarily. It can be various different things. This winter compared to last winter, it was chalk and cheese. We had a fab time last year up until January. Then January through to April, it was horrendous. We had 1 week in March where it was sunny. Everyone got a bit excited. Rugs were taken off, horses were flung out, that's them out now. Then it snowed. And they all went from being decent weights to being like whippets. And that's when you then need to firefight and try and get weight back on. So as owners in the winter, I think it's very important, everyone who has a camera phone, take a picture of your horse. Once a week, stand back and take a picture of them, and then you'll see whether they're losing weight or whether they're putting weight on. Because when you look at them day in, day out, it's very hard. And we all look at them through those tinted glasses, don't we? You know, oh, it just looks fabulous. Someone else is going, So you need to make sure that you're being honest with yourself. If you up the work, you're going to have to up their feed. And as you said, fibre is the most important thing in a horse's diet. They're designed to eat for 18 hours a day. And what we've done is completely change their management by bringing them in, by stabling them, and then by, instead of trickle feeding them, giving them breakfast and giving them tea. So fibre is very important to make sure that they're chewing, to make sure that they're producing saliva so that they're helping buffer all the stomach acid to keep everything working and everything good. Quite often, if you're feeding the correct quantities of a certain product, you're just feeding the wrong product. And just a simple switch from something like high fibre cubes to conditioning cubes can make a massive difference. But fibre is the most important thing, provided in an old horse they have teeth that can chew. Because I have had somebody whose horse was losing weight and I said, have you had his teeth checked? They got somebody to check his teeth and it had none. If that's the case, make sure you soak something like fibre beet, something like fast fibre, speedy beet, high fibre cubes that are soaked. If you soak them in slightly warmer water as well, it makes it much more palatable for them.
I think that was very comprehensive. You're going to do that. Any more questions?
Relates to youngsters. Is there such a thing as growing pains in young horses?
Well, we used to talk about it with the scientists, didn't we? And yes, I think with the advent in the practice, well, in the old West Fife practice, we had good breeders of ponies. They never really, I would say, had an issue. Warm bloods, yeah, well, do they have growing pains? I'm not so sure they have growing pains, but they can have joint problems, especially if they're growing too fast. So, in the areas that might be growing pains. But I'm not actually so sure whether they have, like when we talk about overall joint, like all joints affected. But certainly you might see a hop that suddenly becomes a bit swollen and slightly lameness. I'd always be concerned if you have a kind of joint diffusion in a young horse, especially hops, and they're not, so maybe what we call 1 to 2/10 lame, they're not obviously lame. A lot of the time they fly around the field, and the fields are hard to keep foot sore because they're not wearing shoes. And people can, I think, sometimes just say that's growing pains, but actually they're just sore in their front feet. We'll ask the orthopedic expert.
Nothing to add. I mean, so fasciitis, which is the growth plates themselves, and those is elongating from, which is outside of the joints. You can get inflammation of that. Big folds and growing too quickly, doing too much exercise on hard surfaces in the hot summer. I think it's close to that big growing pains that you can get. So grow them slowly. All reach the same height eventually. They're fire healthy and thinner rather than fatter. That's my mantra for life as well. So.
On the growing side, from a feed perspective, we've done a lot of research, and if you feed something fibre and oil based, they have, instead of getting peaks and troughs in the blood sugar, which are linked to growth spurts, if you feed them a high fibre, high oil diet, something like Quinity, that will keep them on a much more even keel and should help.
All the products are
and it will help. If a horse is prone to it, it's never going to cure it, it's never going to stop it, but it can help if you're feeding a very concentrated, high cereal diet, then you are going to get those peaks and troughs. And it's something just to be very wary of if you have particularly a warm blood or something that's going to be a bit more prone to that.
I have the opposite problem to the usual way the horse that was used for conditioning. I have a fair pony who loves his food, and I just want some advice if there's anything I can do right. He doesn't get rubbed in the winter time and he doesn't get clipped. He gets ugly in the winter time and summer food, and in the summer last year I stripped these in the first time, which does very cold. But because we've had such a high winter, he hasn't actually lost an awful lot over the winter. It's actually negligible and very weary coming into spring now, and we're moving up into summer food, which again I'm going to continue to strip these in. But is there anything else I should be thinking about?
Yep. Even when they're on restricted feeding very important to make sure we're getting the vitamins and minerals. So for a good doing horse, which I sympathise with greatly, what I would recommend is that if you can get a grazing muzzle on, they have to work so much harder. We feel guilty and we undertake some time to get the grazing muzzle on them, but grazing muzzles are absolutely brilliant.
Is that something that can be on all week?
Take it off at some point and be aware that other horses can react badly to a horse that comes in with a grazing muzzle on because they think it's an alien. I would take it off. Is he out 24 hours? Right. I would have it through the day and take it off at night. Okay, because they're less likely to eat as much at night. If you bring them in and restrict their actual feed time out to grass, we did some research a couple of years ago, and they can eat as much in a 4-hour period as they can eat in a 24-hour period. They're not daft, they can adapt. And people who say, my horse is on nothing, he's on absolutely nothing, but he's still putting on weight. If his head is down, he's eating, okay? If they're standing at the gate looking miserable, then yeah, he's on nothing. But they can eat bits of grass that we can't even see. And if you think that when grass is growing, the strongest, most potent part is the freshest bit and the shortest bit that's growing. So all the fatties are out there, especially this time of year, when the grass in the past couple of weeks, I would say, has just started to come through. So get it before you have a problem. Okay? Don't wait until you think, and then you're firefighting again. Okay? Try and make prevention better than cure. Try and stop it before it starts. And make sure that you still give him either a balancer or a broad-based vitamin and mineral supplements so he's still getting all his nutrients that he needs. 99% of horses only need a fibre and a balancer. Okay? We as owners think that he's working really hard when he's doing 20 minutes 3 times a week. Yeah, he even broke into a sweat the other day. So again, you need to be quite honest with yourself about how much he's actually doing. And if you don't exercise them, they're never going to lose weight. Okay? But make sure you feed a high fibre, low calorie diet. Something like cool fibre, like olives are. Job done. Yeah? And that's all his vitamins and minerals, so that you're not getting any deficiencies. It's got vitamin, it's going to improve health, magnesium, it's got absolutely everything in it. So that's what I would do with him, and just prevention better than cure.
And exercise.
Yeah.
Our 11-month-old foal loves the lickets. Are they a waste of money or beneficial?
Loves which what where?
Lickets.
The lickets.
The mineral stuff?
Yes.
Or the salt ones?
No.
The two are different.
Which one?
No, the mineral one.
The mineral, no, they're not wasting money. I think where I tend to lose the understanding of it is when horses eat things they know they're deficient in, like the odd bit of sandstone here, or licking that bit of grass there, or eating this bit of soil. I don't necessarily follow that one at all. But first of all, do no harm. It's not going to do any harm at all. Is it needed? Probably not, to be honest.
Right.
Makes you feel better.
It's like one every 2 weeks.
Makes your bank account feel worse.
I'd like to ask, probably maybe Lonnie and Andy, do you ever have concerns about very, very big horses with tiny feet with regard to their soundness and their
Start, Lonnie.
Well, I know where you're coming from. It wouldn't, I wouldn't look at it, obviously if it's completely ocean, if it's a nice big horses with tiny feet, yeah, that there could be a problem. If it was something that bothered me that much, I would actually find a good barrier to actually, but I've never really seen many horses like that. The horses I've seen have been normal, and then they have one small foot, and I know, speaking to someone earlier on said, it could cause problems. But I mean, I remember having a horse myself, and it had one foot slightly smaller than the other foot, and I had it for years, it didn't really affect it. But I know where you're coming from. If it's really, really tiny feet, I think sometimes flat-footed horses are maybe a little bit more of a problem, because I had a very good show jumper and he had flat feet and he continually went on and off lane. And he jumped at highest level, he jumped internationally, he jumped down at Horse of the Year show, he jumped at Resorts. But a lot of the time he had to be kept really well shod, and if he ever even went a few days longer than he should have done, he was always one-footed. And it was only because he had flat feet. So I would be more, personally, that would bother me a little bit more, because it's nice stuff there.
Yeah, it's not something that, as Ronnie says, you see a lot of, believe it or not. Anne's just whispered that you're ridiculous, but you will predispose to getting ridiculous eventually. It's like, for example, if I was to walk around in a pair of high heels, focus all my weight onto one tiny little point. It's think about it like that. Imagine the pressure that would go through my heel. It's the same idea. You've got a big lump of a horse and you're trying to make it walk with tiny little feet. It's never going to be good. It's maybe going to be sound for a while, but it's going to probably have problems later on in life.
Can I just continue this? Basically, it's on the same kind of thread about what Ronnie was saying about asymmetrical feet, and one bigger than the other. So there's an example of one horse which absolutely hasn't got a matching pair of feet. There's another horse, again, which hasn't got a matching pair of feet. So my question is, again, just carrying on from that point, how would you feel about buying, selling and competing a horse like that? You know, if you're buying a horse to bring on, and then you're having to have it vetted by one of us guys, does that give you the heebie-jeebies? You're afraid of it?
I mean,
yeah, I've got some.
To be fair, if I know that a horse is going to be vetted, it has got feet like that, then obviously you guys are going to pick up on it straight away. So ideally, I would like to have a horse that has nice feet. That's in an ideal world. But if I'd seen a horse performing and knew the horse's history, and it did have a slightly smaller foot, it wouldn't personally put me off. But I wouldn't be buying it to sell it, I'd be buying it to compete it myself. Because obviously when they're going to be vetted, that's when you go against them. So, so it would have to be cheaper to be able to buy it. But it wouldn't put me off personally, because as I say, I have had them in the past.
And how would you shoot a horse like that?
First of all, all of those horses need to short back.
Yes. One's got one to it, one's got one foot bigger than the other, and I think every individual horse is different. I think some of them will put up with the work. I've seen horses show jump at international level with one foot horrendously bigger than the other, and it stays sound. And yet I've seen happy hackers go away with one foot bigger than the other. What a lot of people will try and do is rob that big foot to make it look the same as the little foot. That's definitely not what you do. You actually chew the individual feet, what's in front of you. You don't try and make them a pair. You can make it slightly more aesthetically pleasing, but it's not going to get you anywhere. I see lots of them that have been, the big foot's been robbed. And the little foot's been left long. Particularly just before a betting, so they... Yeah, definitely. But loads of support. But as vets, we're probably seeing more horses with odd feet. I think more and more warm bloods certainly genetically have got odd feet. But it's not necessarily a problem. What do people feel about having a horse lunge on the hard circle? How many people have had horses vetted recently, selling a horse recently? And don't really want to see it lunge on the hard circle. It's needed, we need to do it. Because if a horse presents like this, and it floats with sound on the hard circle, I don't care about that. I'm actually not going to take any x-rays of it. Because, just like Ronnie said, it can do the job.
Out of the 2 feet, if you could match one or the other, what is better? Have a boxing foot or a smaller foot?
The bigger one. The reason why we get nervous actually is because of what can be going on inside. So the smaller foot tends to have, if it's because of lameness, rather than that's just the way it's built, the smaller foot tends to have less weight put on it over time, bit by bit by bit. so that the small foot is contracted because it had less weight going through it. And that's the leg they're favouring. Not just because they're hopping leg, but they're feeling it a wee bit.
So a small foot like that, is that the type of foot that grows more up like a stilt rather than over
Yeah,
and
the
straight?
heel gets longer and longer vertically,
Okay.
and the other foot is splayed with a big, wide, healthy frog, whereas the frog with the upright one is very atrophied, it's narrow.
How would
you need to know
the size
this
of
value.
live horses to different feet, how does that affect things that you want to insure?
Oh, it can affect it an awful lot, because as soon as we write asymmetrical front feet, guess what the insurance company does? But I'm afraid we have to write on this legal document everything we've talked about and everything we've found. But that's where exclusions are the start of negotiation. You say to the insurance company either, well, here are the x-rays and the x-rays are normal, in which case fantastic, or alternatively you say, well, I'll tell you what, if I have 12 months of competing or full exercise with this horse and nothing has happened, let's talk about lifting an exclusion and getting it in writing then. It's a start of negotiation, these exclusions. You don't just take them as read and that's it, finalised. It's always worth discussing. So we've always got a poor navicular compared to a good one. And underneath, again, you don't need to show where the difference is, they just don't look the same. So again, the bad one and the good one. But where you can fall through is that you get something like that, which is a black cyst sitting in the middle of it, and that's the horse is completely sound. So actually gauging what's going on with x-rays and what the horse is doing clinically isn't always that accurate. But again, that isn't what I would recommend for purchase, and one the insurance company would certainly jump up and down about. But that's why, A, we get nervous about odd-shaped feet, and also we often take x-rays for it. And here endeth my bladder.
Yes, good.
Yes.
On that point of the similar shape of the feet, do you think that came from forward onwards, or do you think this is a
There's huge amount of reasons why they could have one foot bigger than the other, correct me if I'm wrong here. When the foals, one thing is eating the grass. You ever seen them out like this? If they do that often enough, and it's such an important time in the growth, if they do it often enough, that's enough to change it ever so slightly. When?
Not convincingly.
No, apparently. There's so many reasons why. We have one at home, and it was exactly what Hugh just described. It's got a bit of a really bad weight and it's favouring one foot, and one foot is just contracting up. Lots of reasons. There's not one reason more than the other, to be honest.
But when you said genetic, that sort of puzzled me. Why?
It's just the way the ball. I've got one ear that's bigger than the other, apparently.
You might see what one side.
It's one I get clipped behind.
You said genetic because I think it might be more about.
I have some friends in I shoe some horses, trim some horses too, and I think it's the grandmother, the mother, and the grandmother, the mother, sorry, the mother, the daughter, and the grandmother, and all of them have got one front foot that's ever so slightly, it's the same foot, different. You probably wouldn't notice it by looking at it, but it is slightly different, and all three of them use the same foot. Massive coincidence or genetic? You know.
I think there's a big transition now because when I graduated many, many years ago, in final year, an uneven foot was a no-no. I mean, if you were vetting something, you just wouldn't even pass it. And of course, they didn't go down the road of all these x-rays at vettings and things then, unless they were very expensive horses. But the warm blood coming into the country has changed the whole aspect of the uneven foot, because quite a lot of warm bloods do have a very slightly clubbed foot. And is it correct me if I'm wrong, a lot when they say it's because of the way they're kept, because they don't, as yearlings and 2-year-olds, they're not out grazing the way our youngsters were traditionally. So I don't know if that, because obviously if they're not moving, there's no hoof expansion, and therefore the foot tends to go more upright. I vetted a beautiful horse quite a few years ago for eventing, for 3-day eventing, and it had, now I looked at it and I thought, this horse has got a slightly uneven foot. and I'm going to get hell when I feel this horse for that. So the girl who was buying it, I explained it all to her. She spoke to her own vet, and he said to me, my client breaks horses very easily, so I think we'll not even go down this road. So the horse then, it was a lovely horse. It was sold to a show jumper. It won the amateur class at Hoy's, I think a few years ago. It's still going. It was sold for a vast sum of money down to England. And as a show jumper, it's still going. It's obviously not affecting it. So it's really difficult to make that decision, isn't it?
But I saw a horse last week, I betted, which had not on a feet like that, stunning. And you put this on a hard circle, and it floated around, it trotted around as if it was on a soft school. And that gives one an awful lot of confidence that says, this is a young horse and it's a bit like I am, one-sided. But it moved without any problems. And that's one reason why we perform the tests we do at a vetting, isn't to make something there which isn't there, but just to accentuate things. And if they move as freely and easily as that, happy days.
I think we all have to remember that the first slide you put up slightly unfair, and all we saw was on feet. We didn't see the whole horse. We're all used to viewing the whole horse and also the history of the horse. And you've got to have the whole picture.
I suppose you could say when we see it, a foot like feet like that.
We go,
no, you go, well, let me find something else to fail with. Let's be honest.
I got an email from a girl, somewhere down in the Borders, who said she was a trained thermography technician. And she was looking for some horses to scan as case studies as part of the training. What do you think of thermography as a diagnostic?
I could give you one word and it would be very succinct, but I'll expand a wee bit. There was an actual study that was done down in Rochdale a year or two ago, and they had all of the horses.
Can we just stop? Can we go back a bit?
To say what thermography is?
Yes, because
thermography is a lovely, colourful camera which has a look at a horse and sees where the different temperatures of the skin are. And obviously, if it's standing with his bum towards the window, his bum's going to be hotter on one side than on the other. But it's meant to all be standardised with a standardised colour-sensitive camera, and you're always meant to do it out of drafts and out of winds in a closed room and so on. But then if I go forward again, there was a study that was done down at Rochdale, which is obviously a huge equine hospital, where all of the horses had thermography done before they had the genuine lameness workup. And the conclusion that they came to look at all of these horses was that the thermography actually hindered the accurate diagnosis in the vast majority of cases rather than so I'm afraid I'm a little bit cynical about it because it's not been proven yet. I'm afraid that the way our vets are trained, until we can start believing in things, it's going to be proven to us.
I thought the interpretation for the actual thermograph we were a wee bit sort of dubious.
Very pretty pictures.
Just when we're talking about feet, this is the feet supplements, potions and potions that you can apply to feet. Are they
Well, I'd probably say that the pink sparkly glitter that most people put on the outside, and oils and things, go from the inside. That's the best way to improve feet is diet. Are these supplements any good? Well, to be honest, I've seen horses that are reacted greatly to them, and others that hasn't made the blindest bit of difference. Probably their diet. If you've got a good balanced diet, then I think that's where you need to start. To be honest, but I wouldn't bother too much with the potions on the outside. It's more from the inside. And say that again?
There's an awful lot out there.
Yeah, the problem is with a lot of the oil-based ones, the foot's actually quite good at regulating its own moisture content, and if you slap, I've seen people put old engine oil over the hood, it just completely stops it from being able to do anything itself. So, I'll probably expand on the diet, I'm quite sure.
Like I said, a balanced diet. Supplement companies a top supplement company a couple of years ago, and the Mars Ethical Consultation Panel, whatever it is, of the whole Mars corporate body said no chance, because it was completely fabricated, there's no evidence. You can pick up the joint supplement, it's the most potent supplement in the world, this will make a lame horse sound in 5 days, and you read the ingredients and it's got sugar malt in it. With hoof supplements in particular, there are a lot of them. It takes a long time to know whether it's actually working in a horse. Every horse is an individual. Some will do brilliantly on some things, others will do terribly on the same product. Be very sure that you know what you're putting into your horse. And I've been caught out on this before, because I've recommended by a farrier to put my horse on a certain hoof supplement, and I trundled off 3 weeks before Blair supplement company was launched. They said, right, we're going to do a comparison, and I said, I'm not changing. I like that one and it works. And they said, do you realise it has 30 grams of tryptophan per serving, and you've been serving that, you've been feeding that for 4 years. The tryptophan is a banned substance. Okay? So if you're competing under rules, don't just think it's fine because it's on shop shelf and it's for sale. That does not mean it's fine. And I was given a short about that. So I'm very, very wary about what I put in. Make sure you know what you're feeding, why you're feeding it. Don't just feed something because the pony 2 stables down started feeding this shiny pony magic feed, and all of a sudden it started getting 70% of its dressage and jumping double clears. Well, that doesn't necessarily going to work for your horse. So feeding a balanced diet, supplement if needed, but don't supplement for supplement's sake.
Can I ask you, what do you think about biotin then as just the compound itself?
Biotin on its own won't do any good, but in a balanced formulation, biotin is brilliant. You also need chondroitin, you need zinc, you need various different things that go into helping construct the hoof. Again, it's about knowing the company that you're buying from and trusting the company that you're buying from. And that's where feed is so much harder, because if you think a joint supplement's working, quite often it's a placebo for us that you think, yeah, I'm so much extra. Whereas sometimes, in order to know if a supplement's working, take them off a bit, and then you'll see if there's a difference. The number of times in lorry parks I've heard people going on about hammers, and there was a girl a couple of years ago came back and said, just did his dressage and he was just brilliant and that hammer's worked and it was amazing and did it. And her dad was going, yeah, yeah. She went off to walk the show jumping and I heard the dad go, did you give it a hammer? And she said, no. And he's going, I didn't give it a hammer. We'll just not tell her. So quite often for us it's a mental thing that we are trying to help them. But make sure if you take them off something, you'll get a better idea of whether it works, which is a nightmare.
Well, more importantly, get somebody else to get it off it, and I'll tell you when.
Yeah. No, I just wondered about the biotin, because I'll do my farm thing now, my dairy farm. There's been quite a lot of trials done scientifically in the Holstein cow. Traditionally, our old-fashioned Friesian cows have very good, strong feet, like native horses and ponies. The Holstein cow has soft, white feet. So they've done trials in feeding extra biotin from weaning, which is like maybe 5 months upwards, to calving. And they found that long term, they've done a lot of work in Holland on this, that the foot quality of those adult cows is much better. So they done, you know, the trouble with the horse world, they tend not to do that sort of trial in like a group of youngsters because they don't have like 30 or 40 weanlings.
It's very, very
really
hard
difficult
to get large studs. We've done stud trials before with national stud, but they never give you nice ones. They give you the ones that are low and dodgy ones that you don't expect to get much money for. So, as far as actual trials of whether biotin works, I would need to find out for you. I'm pretty sure there must be something, and I can find out for you.
Yeah, because to be fair, I mean, a lot of vets and farriers will say if the hoof quality is not good, even biotin.
Best we know how.
Yeah. From a trainer's point of view, do you use
about throwing, I was listening to the conversation just now. The farrier's formula I use sometimes thinking they will help the horse's feet. Certain supplements we use, but we tend not to use too many. We just stick to a normal supplement. And the other thing I do believe in, and somebody asked earlier on about putting mineral blocks in the fields. I've sometimes got a lot of horses that are out in the fields over the winter and I use mineral blocks. I personally think it does help them. And I tend to put them out, the horses love them. And you can almost tell when they start to chew bits of trees and things like that. When I put the supplements out, I let them go throughout the winter, within 2 or 3 weeks that they're used up. And I use them most of the winter. In the summer, I don't.
A lot of feeds also contain vitamin, so if you're supplementing vitamin in the diet, make sure that you're not already feeding them. And it's 15 grams per 500 kilo box is the optimum. Any more than that, you're wasting your money, it won't work. So 15 grams, that's the optimum amount of vitamin.
I just wanted to ask, I was told recently by a feed manufacturer 70% of horses fed wet feed, 70% of colic cases were horses that have been fed wet feed. So that's like your sugar beets or your vegetative things like that, because we didn't encourage mastication. If you feed a dry feed, you put it in the horse's mouth, and it has to start chewing, and the digestive process starts in the gut at an earlier point. The problem with feed, as you know, is that usually the nutritionists are working for companies. It's very difficult to get an unbiased opinion. So, what would your opinion of that be?
Can I direct that one down to Farah?
Number one, as far as the digestive process goes, horses don't have the same salivary amylase that people do. So there's no starch digestion from saliva, which is what happens in people. That's why we salivate so much. Horses produce, I think it's something like 20 litres a day of pure saliva when they're grazing, a huge amount. But that's nothing to do with digestion, that's just fluid to help wash it all down. I would suggest that if 70% of colics are horses that are fed wet feed, my inclination would be that's because more horses are fed wet feed rather than it's the wet feed that's causing colic. I see far more problems with impactions, with chokes, than ever I will do from horses feeding wet feed causing a colic. Hospitalised cases after general anaesthetics, when the gut's moving slowly, get the wet feed going through them. So, yeah, nonsense.
People here feed wet feed, or dampen feed. Yeah, I can.
Yeah, crack on.
No, dry, you can put some water in it, just
Water.
Yeah, juicy thing.
Yeah.
I know this is.
And James, we've never been to a colic at yours, ever.
I beg to differ. I beg the bills when you do. But no, we don't. But we assume that the horses have got water out of them, they've got legs, and they've got a brain. Yes, we feed. We have horses from young horses right through to 4-star on the yard. Basically, they get horse produce. Very much variation.
What did you say?
Other products are available.
Coming back to the bison, there was no good better than I had problems that I have had with my horse's feet. And about 9 months ago, I started giving them the NAF vitamin, the fine and what they call it. And I'm actually amazed at the difference in that horse's feet. He does.
Can I just ask, how do you feel about how much competing you should do with your horses barefoot?
Can of worms. It depends on the horse. Yeah, it depends on the horse, to be honest. I've got horses that I trim, and actually, Douglas had one that was show jumping barefoot. So, you know, that's show jumping barefoot. Depends on the horse.
Yeah. Is that only because you couldn't shoot it?
Say that again?
Is that only because you couldn't shoot it?
No, you can actually shoot barefoot. And I said, Douglas, this thing's feet are rock hard. Do you really want to put shoes on it? You don't need to. And he said, oh great, yeah, because he was going to save money. So, until he needed the grip from the studs, he didn't shoot it. And then he needed some extra grip, so he shot it. If you don't need any protection, correction or grip, then why put shoes on them? I shouldn't say that, but why? But until you need, once you need some more grip or a bit more protection because the foot's sore, or some correction that can be done with trimming, then just leave it the way it is. My wife will tell you that as well. All of our horses barefoot.
Never get him to shoot your horse.
Down my horse, though, just this last year or two, and it's definitely been an increase in it. Even horses that I bought, ponies I bought, a lot of them are coming in now that are short in front and not behind. So I don't know if this is a cost thing that people maybe began to realise, and then in the winter time have them short in front and not behind, and then might shoot them fully. But this has happened. In fact, just recently I had a pony again who's short in front, not behind. We've done it at Aronia. Sometimes, you know, have them short in front and not behind. Just, you know, so I don't know if that's it's the thing, but I just noticed a big difference.
That's a classic when you say it, sit your right below as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you go to vet a horse, it stands there with its front shoes on. And in some yards, obviously, if you've got a lot of youngsters, it's a cost thing, they are going to put front shoes on to begin with. But then you say to the vendor, is it all right with its back legs? Well, yes, it's fine. I said, well, could you just lift it? Because you're always very suspicious. It's like one horse with no back shoes.
Well, I think barefoot trimming is becoming more of fashion. And I think one of the dangers is the analogy that people draw with the wild Mustangs, which have had all the research on the conformation of 4-point trim and so on. And try and draw the analogy from a horse that's living on a dry, arid, hard environment, who's walking miles and miles and miles every day, who is self-maintaining their balance, compared with a horse that's spending a lot of time in the stable, it's not doing as much exercise on soft surfaces, and then when it's not in a soft surface, we're expecting it to go hacking on stony ground and be comfortable without shoes on. And I don't think you can necessarily say, because horses are meant to be like that, therefore mine will be. That's a leap too far, I'm afraid. So being able to adjust and balance horses is what is important.
Does anyone do this barefoot trimming here?
Some of my friends.
Yeah, but you get the barefoot trimmer to do them. See, I'm going to say it. I can't get my head round barefoot trimming because a farrier trains to trim and balance the foot. For years, that's what you do. Before you even think of putting a shoe on, you trim and balance the foot. So what's the difference between the barefoot trimmer? I mean, do you ask your barefoot trimmer, what is the difference?
I had a pony that I brought into my business, and I had a pony that I was about to shoe because she couldn't walk on a tarmac without putting shoes on. And I totally changed her diet, and the lady who really trims for me is in the process of qualifying, but she was allowed to trim, and there was a difference in the shape of hoof going down from the coronet band is remarkable in 6 months, and she's now, I bought her barefoot boots, she's goes out in her barefoot boots, and she's now at the stage she can go out without her barefoot boots, and she's perfectly fine.
And do you have other horses and ponies that are short?
No, all of it.
No, but that's the point I'm making, that, you know, if you ask your farrier to trim,
why not have a farrier?
Why not a farrier do it? That's...
If it's barefoot, why does it have boots on? Surely if it's barefoot. What are barefoot boots?
Because a lot of horses who go from being short to being barefoot will go through a phase where they're sore on their soles, particularly on the hard surface. So you get these comfy woof boots or padded boots to help them through that transformation process, which I don't necessarily think is often a good thing. But I think that the question that Anne was getting at is when farriers trained for years to balance and dress a foot,
why not get your farrier to work with you to go barefoot, rather than barefoot trimmers, which don't need as much training at all, really. Was that the potential is the question?
It's a kind of fashion, I think. I just can't, because you get this argument, don't you, Andrew, that, barefoot trimmers versus farriers, but actually, first thing the farrier learns is to trim the foot.
And I've got loads of horses that put their shoes on, and I actually fully encourage it to give them a break from shoes, because they do become nail sick, and in the climate we live in, the feet are always saturated and falling to pieces, which is driving nails with them. So give them a break when it snows for, well, not this year, it snows for 6 weeks of the year, let the shoes off and put them in the field. They're not running across hardcore gravel in the field. So it's good to give them a break. But when there is problems, we're allowed to shoe them, and the barefooters are kind of restricted, if you like, they can only trim. That's
right, let's not get into a big
no.
No, there's a gentleman right at the back.
Yeah, it was in respect of digestive health. What do you guys think about bran mash for horses? Is it a once a week thing? Maybe how do you feel about that?
How do you feel about bran mashes for digestive health?
The horse's system, the hindgut works with microflora. Okay? So these microflora come along and they digest what we're feeding our horses. So we have these golden rules of feeding. Feed little and often. Make feed changes gradually. Now the feed changes gradually, okay? Your microflora come along, and now I'm not saying to feed Smarties, okay? But you have a bacteria that digests red Smarties, and you have a bacteria that digests blue Smarties. And they come along and you feed that and they break them down, and that's all fine, and it gets the most out of the feed and your horse flourishes and all is good. You then decide that those Smarties aren't worth it at all, so you're going to whack a whole load of purple ones in and not do any kind of changeover. So that bacteria comes along and it's looking for the red Smarties and they're not there, and it's looking for the blue ones and they're not there. So the bacteria tries to break that down and then it kills it off, okay? And then it releases toxins. That's why sudden changes in diet can cause colic. So why once a week would you all of a sudden think, do you know what? Yeah, woof, we'll pop this in and see what happens. Okay? I don't think it's good for digestive health. I think a high fibre, low starch diet is the way forward. And your horse's digestive system will function brilliantly on that, because it's a more natural way of feeding, rather than sticking in a cereal dense.
I love bran.
That's
A lot of horses we have in, or we are treating, we are imposing some change in their management. So we aren't able to feed what the horse has been fed on, which often should be grass. And therefore they're more likely to get bunged up, they're more likely to get impactions, and they're more likely to get colic because of it. So again, horses that are in the hospital, or have had general anaesthetics, or on lots of box rest, little and often, or even just twice a week bran, is actually a good thing for them, because it shunts everything through with it. It's osmotic diarrhea. It draws the fluid into it, it acts as a wee bit of a stimulus to keep on passing rather than bulking up. So for that reason, I do like giving bran, because I hate stomach tubing horses every 3 hours to get rid of an impaction.
Yeah, so, okay, that's...
And they don't get brown head anymore, as they used to. The old-fashioned, this was years ago, the calcium phosphate imbalance was totally wrong. We used to get these great big lumps on the front of the head with horses fed lots of bran.
So in moderation, you would not be adverse to that, really?
Absolutely.
But we are feeding bran at the clinic very specifically.
Yeah, for a reason.
We've got horses that have problems. I think if you've got a horse that is perfectly healthy at home, I wouldn't necessarily recommend feeding bran once a week.
Yeah.
If you've got a horse that has an infection or is in a clinic, then that's why we're feeding it. So if it's perfectly healthy.
No, she's giving a view.
Yeah,
It's valid.
It's valid. I think also...
It is, I'm the chair, I said
Do you feed bran? Do you give any horses?
We don't have bran.
Yeah. I think traditionally, horses would have a day off a week, the work horses, and that's where it stemmed from. So when you didn't feed them the vast amount of work load feed, they got a brand match, isn't it? I mean, and that's fair. So you didn't have what they called Monday morning, which is disease.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I do recommend my clients to, I mean, when we had, my daughter had 2 horses, so if after an event, or we've been out, we've been travelling all day, they came home, we would give them a brand match. Yeah.
We used to have a brand, but we only ever used it for the poultice. Now we
but it worked well for the poultice.
now we use napkins.
Well, it certainly does the job. I've given them a good clean out once or so in a week. A few apples chucked in there and it's perfectly happy, but it's a perfectly happy horse otherwise. But I just thought I'd ask, because I'm not very knowledgeable in that area.
There was a question waiting down.
I was actually going to go a bit about it. Based on the other one, back to the feeding side, again, Kinross was probably concerned here. Since he had his operation, I've been giving him conflict. We'd like as a normal balancer, would I better feeding him a balancer with, one of the joint balancers or something, as opposed to feeding the conflicts and maybe introduce conflicts if he starts to come in the future? Or
I'm about to get on my soapbox about supplements as well. I'll have to do that very quickly. And my analogy that many people here might have heard already is that if you go to your corner shop and you buy My Mum's Happy Shop of flour, it says flour on it and therefore it's flour and it must be good. So you make a loaf of bread and it's got everything. You go and get a high quality flour from your bakers or wherever, it's still called flour, but it's a quality ingredient, that makes all the difference. And exactly the same is true with every single supplement, be it a joint supplement or whatever. Is that just because it says, I've got this on the tin, A, there's no legal requirement that what is on the label is actually in the bucket, but also the quality of what it claims on the label isn't actually all there. So you're better off having a quality supplement made by a reputable company, and Corteflex, certainly from off the shelf, is a very good one, yeah. And I would be sticking with that rather than having, oh, we've also got some joint stuff in. Again, legally, the supplement market makers have got no legal requirement to have the ingredients in the tin being the same as the label. If you buy from a drug company, they have to make exactly the same as they would be making their drugs. So they're batch controlled, they're quality tested. And legally, yes, they have to have what's in the tin as well, because it's on the label. So buying a drug company joint supplement is totally different from buying a Joint Ache No More and Flex is Good and all of these sort of names to gone supplements.
So the Corteflex or Max
Corteflex is
What you can get is a direct comparison. If you phone a company and see what is in your product, they will have to tell you.
No, but there was a study in 2002 where they took 24 joint supplements, this is in Canada, 24 joint supplements off the shelf, and they tested to see what was in it.
And not what they said was
only two of them had the daily required dose of chondroitin sulfate. And what's even scarier, 4 of them had 0.
Well, I absolutely, wholeheartedly agree with that.
Pay for what you get.
What we do as a company is we have Waltham, we have a pet centre at Waltham. We also do a lot with Kentucky, we also do a lot with Liverpool. And we bring competitor products in and analyse what's in them to see if it does what it says on the tin. And a lot of the time, it doesn't do what it says on the tin. Which is part of the reason why we brought out our own supplement company rather than buying another supplement company, which did not do what it said on the tin at all in 99% of its products. No point pretending.
I just wondered if you and how excited are you or hopeful are you for this new vaccine that you're trying?
Yes, I know a friend of mine has just lost a mare with crassiness, and she lives in an area where they have tried the vaccine. Her mare was one that had the placebo. Yeah, I think it is exciting.
Any progress is
whether how long it will take to come to commercial viability.
Does that mean you now know
what causes it?
Not with any certainty, no.
No.
We have a hope, but it's not certainty.
What I find quite strange is that, I mean, sort of the West area, from the Rutland Falls, we're not seeing as much grass sickness now as we did 10, 15 years ago. Whereas, just south of Perth, they're having a real, Altarada, they have a real nucleus of grass sickness. It's strange how it moves and changes. And of course the theory is now it's a clostridial toxin in the ground. And one of the kind of anecdotal stages, because the weather was so wet 2 summers ago, has that changed the pan of the soil of the ground. And in those areas, because certainly Altarada Dunning was very, very wet then. But it is exciting, and the trial, we don't have a lot of results yet. The thing is, this young guy was like 6 weeks old. But they have lost, I know the vet, and there have been, I think, he's had 10 cases in the last 6 weeks. There's been a growth there.
Just on the grass sickness topic, there's been a lot of like soil disturbance, and you're saying it's something with soil. Around where I am, I get a lot of mold and mold hills, and I do actively try and combat that. Do you think that would be something that's a problem? Mold hills in pasture, and I drive around the country and I see mold hills everywhere.
That's why I saw the mole catcher last time I was with you.
Yeah, I do have a mole catcher to catch my moles. Because we're going to put the feet through the holes in the ground to make it a lot of time. But I just wondered if there was any sort of thought on that.
I don't think there's necessarily any scientific proof yet that moles increase the risk, but anything causing soil disturbance is unwanted.
Just I know that where I buy my hazels from, they're now actually actively getting rid of the mold hills to make sure there isn't any soil disturbance in those fields and stuff like that. So I just wondered if you heard anything.
Moles tend to be more prevalent in more fertile ground. Correct me if I'm wrong, farmers. I think that's the case. So I mean, a lot of the kind of horse-sick pastures, good poorer quality grazing, you don't see many mold hills there. I think you must be in quite good rich soil.
It's a lot of sand, but yeah, it seems to be moldable.
The horse I lost to grass sickness the week before that, I had my field cut and I always wondered whether that's what caused it, because she was born in that ground.
But you can get these clusters, like I was describing. The horses can be in the same paddock for 15, 20 years and nothing really has changed in the management, and yet all of a sudden 5 or 6 in the course of 3 weeks can go down with it. Something environmental, some toxin has got to have changed to cause that sudden spate. And that is where we do understand that it is purely down to this Clostridium, and therefore we know how successful the tetanus vaccine is, and therefore the hope, it's not an expectation, it's a hope, is that this might be the same thing for us, because other than that we're up against it.
The clostridial theory kind of almost fits the picture. I kind of understand how that might actually work, but I think there is an individual susceptibility as well. There must be, because you can have 10 horses in a field, all in the same grazing and the same management, and 1 or 2 will take it and the rest won't. So there has to be an individual susceptibility as well. And stress definitely is a factor. Although, obvious stress, but for any reason the horse is stressed. Remember, Ron, you've got a lovely colour jumping pony from Ireland, and it was on the yard like 2 weeks. I think, I just sort of want to say something that, I feel very strongly, there are people who, when there is a case of grass sickness on a yard and everyone gets up in arms and says, oh, this yard has had grass sickness, I don't want my horse here. I actually think, I say to clients, if you keep a horse in Fife or Angus or Perthshire, then anyone runs the risk of having at some point in time a horse with grass sickness. So you should never apportion blame to any individual yard or anything else.
We came up from Cumbria about 11 years ago now, and we had horses in Cumbria for my mum had them, so about 30 years. And we had, in that time, we had one horse that got grass that was in a field that had previously, or had always had horses in it. And just white, seemed completely random.
I've got an almost 2-year-old who's had colic once, peak came out and sorted her out. And I'm concerned now, we're getting very close. She's been on the stubble field, she was out, been on the stubble field all winter. Very shortly, because they've just decided to stop plowing the stubble, I'm going to have to move her to the paddocks for the summer. And we're always told that we should never change the horse's diet radically just overnight. But that's going to be a fairly radical change. She's been on the stubble field with minute little bits of grass and hay, and suddenly she's going to go onto grass. No hay. And she does get hard feet as well. She gets feet pulp and plate barley once a day.
Firstly, flake barley and sugar beet. She's not getting vitamin minerals she needs. So I would supplement that with broad-based vitamin mineral or a balancer. Okay, just to make sure, especially at that age when they're growing, it's very important they have all the nutrients to grow. That's a tricky one, but you can, move it over. You're doing the right thing in that you're feeding the beet so she's getting the fibre. I would maybe try and put some hay in the field with her for when she goes in, so that she'll maybe the grass is growing, she's not really going to eat the hay realistically, is she? But you can always try that, might make you feel a bit better. If you can have access to slightly better grass and have her, just half an hour in the lead up, so that it's not quite such a change. The good thing is that you said that there is grass coming through the stubble, so it's not as though she's going to have had nothing and going on to rich grazing. Is it old land that she's land she's going on to, or quite fresh grass?
Fairly fresh, I would say, because the summer pastures have been
fairly established pastures. I'm interested in that, and some of us have got the retail working. I'm in the same position that I'm managing to put out to and put out the retail for a few hours, but not everybody in the I don't know if they've got that option or if they just.
The difficulty I would have with that, I could go down twice a day and move her in and out and whatever, but she's going to be sharing with another youngster and a gelding. The youngster's almost weaned. When he's weaned, then the mum is going and there'll be a gelding and my youngster and this other youngster. So it would mean moving all three of them. I wouldn't really want her sitting on her own.
If you can, I would add in something, a probiotic and a prebiotic as well, just to help the gut function a little bit more as well. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add to that.
There's another feed-associated question. The breeder that I got her from, who I'm still in touch with a lot, feeds her horses, not constantly, every now and then, linseed, boiled linseed. I just wondered, and I've done some research online, and there seems to be one person saying you have to boil it for 6 hours, and the other saying, actually, no, once it gets released, all it's kind of jelly and everything, you're fine. That's enough.
Linseed's not something I've ever had to work with. Why does she eat linseed? Is it for cold condition?
Yeah.
Adding some more vegetable oil at Tesco. Saves you having oil, saves the mess, saves the worry of, oh, I wonder the wrong, oh, I'm not oiled the wrong way. Honestly, get a bit of oil. Soy oil is the best, but let's face it, if you're going to pay 20 quid for a thing of soy oil or 5 out of Tesco for their everyday vegetable oil, you're going to go for vegetable oil. I would add in a little bit of that.
I was recommending cod liver oil, is that?
I'm not a fan of adding fish products to horses' diets. That is a personal thing, because I had a horse that went evil when he was given anything off the bar releases. And after that had been a moment when he went from being the loveliest, sweetest animal in the world to being a psychopathic killer that will eat you as soon as it comes to you. So from personal point of cases, just add in some vegetable oil from Tesco and it's much more cost effective as long as you're feeding a balanced diet. Otherwise you're going to upset the oil ratio.
And just a
I have a 7-year-old ex-race horse who's stable and he's linked to self-harm. Do you think it's stress, boredom, any opinions?
He's likely into self-harm.
Yes. He's trying to remove sharp objects, but he's still managing.
What does he do? Does he scratch?
Yes, scratches and stumps and that. That's also rubbing on.
Well, in the old-fashioned way, we say, oh, you're feeding him too much, he's got too much heat in his skin. I mean, I think self-harm needs to be adored. It's a big problem with X-rays horses. For management afterwards.
And then you get a vicious cycle. If he is scratching, that's releasing histamine, which is creating more of a flare-up, which is making you scratch even more.
Yeah.
An antihistamine in horses, it's a lovely idea. It doesn't do the cotton picking thing, I'm afraid. Completely different pathway from people. So antihistamines really don't do a huge amount. Steroids are good.
A onesie for X-rays horses.
But I guess the only other thing is, is it genuine self-harming through boredom?
Yeah.
Or is it generally I'm started itching because I've got some dermatitis, but now I'm itching because I'm itching?
Yeah.
It's the only other what if.
I've got a question for Ronnie. Very quiet. Ronnie, when you're training people, what qualities is it important for people to have? So when they come for a lesson, what are you wanting from them? You know, obviously you don't want them to sit there and not willing, but what qualities do you find you need to work with when you're teaching people?
And I'm teaching people, but as opposed to show jumping, I'm teaching obviously. You need to be keen, they want to do it. There's no point in, but I'll teach from all standards. A lot of people have this idea that because I will Douglas writes at a high level, that we will teach people that will jump over a certain height. Completely wrong. I had someone came to me the other day who only took up riding 2 years ago, has only recently started jumping, and I'm talking crossbow, and she's in her 40s, and she came for a lesson, and she said, I've been ill for 2 days before I came here, and I said, why? She said, I thought you had me jumping, I just wanted to jump 2 little fences. So by the time I finished with her, I had started off dead low, walked around, and then I had this little fella in the corner with sheep on it, right? And I said, jump this, and she was really keen. I got a position over there, just confidence, okay? And then she came round, and all the way around, I said, we made you jump this, now she's coming to jump the sheep, and all the way around she's going, it doesn't like sheep, it doesn't like sheep. Just keep coming with fight, and her friend's videoing her. She's going, it doesn't like the sheep, it doesn't like. And she came round and walked over the sheep. I went, what are you on about? But I think confidence is, you know, and there's lots of, you know, after the Olympics, things, lots of people have gone a lot into show jumping, and you know, it's such, I love it, it's a great sport, and it's for everybody, it's not just for, you know what I mean, it doesn't matter, everybody has their own level. When I first started, I used to go to my riding club, and I used to watch show jumping, and I was desperate, my ambition was to one day jump at the Open, I'm affiliated, and I used to do the novice things, and then, you know, and it's always a different, another rung, and if people start, and they enjoy it, they don't have to escape it. You'll find that, you know, people are actually, you know, getting into it. This lady came and she took her video home. This is gospel truth, because I taught a friend yesterday, and she went away last week. She booked in tomorrow, actually, she's coming at 10 o'clock, and she took the video home, and everybody in the yard couldn't believe it. They were like, you're joking? She went, oh, and then out of that, somebody brought a halfling here yesterday to jump, and I was like, it was like gobsmacked. So she's writing about it, and I felt so sorry for the person. Sorry, I'm walking now. She was young with this halfling pony, and it was immaculate. It was pure white. She had spent hours with it, and I said, I'm really pleased your pony's turned out well. She wasn't so well turned out, of course. She jumped around, and I said, they're not very good show came hunter and I do this and that way. And to be fair, it went round and okay, it wasn't higher than a metre, but it jumped everything, and I just had a bit more in front leg, and she was gobsmacked. And she said the reason I came was because this older lady had gone home. I said, look, I went in for a lesson and you had me jumping, of course. But you know, it's all about what somebody wants to do. But obviously, when you go back to your question, if people come, and I've trained all people that can't ride, people that can ride, whatever, but you really want to be so keen and want to do it. If you've got a good sense of balance, I've taught people that, you know, haven't really show jump. A guy just now called Robert Donnelly. Started off, his wife had horses, he had nothing to do with them at all. He said he wasted money, wasted space, it cost him too much. His wife broke her arm, his wife broke her arm. He then had to do the horses, so he thought, there can't be anything difficult about this, she just sits on it, it doesn't go. So he decided he was going to take up riding, so he took riding up. Anyway, to cut a long story short, a few years ago he came to my place, his wife booked him in a lesson to show jump. So he came in, and I'm assuming that he's been to shows and done everything, he had a good sense of balance, he rode round and built these fences, and his wife's on the gallery at that time, was outside school, she's jumping up and down like this, and I'm saying, jump this, and jump the oxer, and come down the combination, but this time she's jumping on and off the seat. And I said, what's wrong with her? And he just went around the whole course, and she went, my God, he's only jumped 2 fences, because he went on. But there's no, and do you know that guy now, he comes to me, honestly, and he jumped, he got less this morning, it goes around 125, 120, 125, and he's in his 50s, and he only started riding 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that. So, but he enjoyed it, loved it.
Question maybe for Anne and Freud, maybe back to James as well. When you're bringing on young horses, would you treat warm bloods rather than maybe like your Irish thoroughbreds or crosses? Would you treat them any differently because they are known to mature later? Do you have any opinions about bringing them on with regards to infrastructure or just individually some horses?
Start with that.
From a show jumping point of view?
Well, just comparative point of view, warm bloods tend to mature that little bit later. Do you wait longer before you bring them on to work?
Well, I do have views because if the warm bloods on the continent, you know, they have 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old classes. Now these horses, I mean, the 4-year-olds jumping 110, 5-year-olds are jumping 120, they're beautifully schooled, they've obviously been in drawings since the age of 3. So these horses, whereas in Britain, traditionally, you know, it's a 5-year-old and we'll nurse it over a metre. And there's a big issue in British show jumping just now. Should we have age classes and promote them, or should, like the Foxhounds are fine, like boys is one of the most prestigious classes, but you can have a 10, 11 or 12-year-old winning the Foxhunter. And the Continentals look at us and say, what's that about? Because the Foxhunter horse is actually a novice horse and should perhaps be no more than 6 or 7 years. So, yeah, my impression is that, yes, the warm blood does mature later, but that's not the case on the continent, which is the home of the warm blood.
I agree to that. I lived in Germany, my husband was in the Air Force, and the 4-year-olds were doing what our 10-year-olds were doing, and they were so well schooled. You know, I've got a 12-year-old, and he was for 20 pounds, and he's so competing with 20 pounds. And so you hear them, no heel, they're back, it shows you, I mean, he was £1,000 because he wanted to compete in bigger classes 150. What for target anything. And you do the 4-year-olds are doing more, what 10-year-olds are doing.
I personally, I know where you're coming from, and I've been on the continent and seen 4-year-olds that somebody brought horses a few weeks ago, and it's just gone 5. It's like it canters out like international changes. Like
the time limits. It's like they ride them off quicker as they get older. That's why.
That's all that I was just going to get to that point.
People are buying horses from the continent, bringing them across here.
Yeah. I would say personally, I would look at a horse in general. Like I've had a horse that I don't know, somebody may have a horse called Here's Jack. We broke him as a 4-year-old. We didn't do anything with him as a 4-year-old because he was still growing. He didn't look mature. We turned him away. We brought him as a 5-year-old to go to a few little shows, and he was 6 years old before we started to do anything with him. But then you get another 4-year-old that's really mature and can do a little bit more. I think you have to use your eye. I personally this is just a personal thing. I know where you're coming from with the 4-year-olds, but for 4-year-olds to jump 110, they have obviously been broken, ridden, jumped as 3-year-olds, but they're still the bones, they're still soft, they're still growing. I would disagree with that, because I think personally a 4-year-old, when it is 4, this is, you know, you should be going around little things but nothing, because we were placed in the 4-year-old class at school, and they didn't have anything higher than a metre 5, and that was fine. But some things, as you see on the continent, they expect a 4-year-old to jump 110, a 5-year-old to jump 120, and I think that's far too young. But that's a personal opinion. Yeah, because when they get older, because they've done so much work, it's like sometimes racehorses, if they've done so much work as a youngster, when they do start to get on in years, and on the continent they don't want an older horse, and this is why a lot of them can be brought over here, and then suddenly I get people come to me and say, oh, I've been to see a warm blood at an 8-year-old or 9 or 10-year-old, and it's only 2,000 or it's only 3,000, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, for you to bring it over here from the continent, and for you to sell it in this country at £3,000, what is it being sold for?
I mean, I'm asking what the other people that he was fantastic. The only thing he would do is show hand. He's so many. He would believe himself. He would do everything.
But I think it's like people, different people mature. You know, you look at a horse, and I think you have to look at the maturity of a horse and know exactly how much work to give that particular horse.
There is a complete counter-argument to that, though, I'm afraid, which is your young racing thoroughbred on the flat at the age of 2 is already undergoing bony adaptation, surely, and is stimulated correctly to cope with the loads that are put on it. So if you start young enough and stimulate the bone to remodel, to harden up, so it can cope with the forces, the 3-year-old, they can be running. And okay, some of them break legs because of it, but purely because that speed and rate of adaptation is out of sync with that individual horse's exercise program. But if you start young enough, you can stimulate them to change.
From our point of view, training competition event horses, one of the reasons I tend not to do the burly and event horse classes with my young horses is because I think that for the horse at the stage of development is that sometimes jumps are too big, and particularly when you're in competition, the ground isn't always good enough to jump those young horses on that ground and jump that size. And something I hate to see is horses being punished for jumping well. It's a real passion of mine. And if you jump a horse on hard ground and it's got a lovely big natural jump, it's going to be punished in advance. And that's just force of nature. And so I tend not to do very much with it. We tend to break it out into 3, but not do much with them. Do a bit more with them when they're 4, but not a lot. We're not allowed to start making until they're 5. I've got a young horse now who's 6 this time. In an ideal world, he would do a 1-star as a 6-year-old, and in an ideal world, he would then do a 2-star as a 7-year-old, but he would keep fairly low mileage. And if he went well at his 2-star, 7-year-old, he would come out. You see, quite a lot of horses will go from the 2-star Blair and then come out again in the autumn and do more. I would only ever do a 2-star, and then however well it's gone, it goes on holiday, on the break, and back in the week. Because you want that horse to compete into its middle teens. And I remember going to a lecture demonstration by Rodrigo Pessoa years ago, and he said, a horse has a certain number of jumps in its life, and he does a huge amount of training on the poles on the floor, because he says if you take all those jumps away from it at home, you've got less jumps away from it. And then you get all the way back down to what we started with, conformation, and its ability to withstand all the forces, stay sound for longer. Better than confirmation, but the chances are lasting longer.
Exactly. But remember then, you show jumpers out there, you don't need to jump 80 jumps in the collecting line before you go in to jump 12.
That's one thing to go into that point. This is actually quite, that's something that really does some horses need 4 practice fences, some horses maybe need 10. But in when I was show jumping, I used to always warm them up on the lap first, get them right, and I used to always start, there was 5 horses before me, I would start like little crossbow and vertical, a few little uprights, oxer, wider oxer, whatever, and a big upright, stand one before me in the ring and then go straight in the ring. I have recently seen people, in collecting, and they jump and they jump and they jump, and the other thing that really annoys me is they'll keep coming off the same way all the time, never turning right, they keep on the right way, the right way, the right way, and then there's loads of room for them to change. And then something happened recently, I was at the show, and this girl looked at the rider, nice horse, came in, jumped, warmed up on the practice fence. I saw it go in the ring, it jumped in the ring, jumped the clear round. She came out, she rode around the clip round, I thought to cool it down. We still had 2 horses to go in that class. And next thing is we're still warming up. We get the next horse to come out, the warm just starts to warm up, she comes back again to warm the horse up. And I said, excuse me, you're the jump off. She went, yeah. I said, but the jump off's not started yet, there's another 15 horses to go. Yeah, just warming up the jump off. And I took it to him, and she jumped it, and she had it 3 classes. And to be fair, by the 3rd class, it crashed into an oxer and landed picked up. And I kicked myself because I should have actually said to her, I should have gone to her and said, excuse me, this horse has done too much. But then some people like to be in practice fence and jump and jump and jump because they love to do it. They don't actually think about the horse.
How many classes if you were taking the horse to, would you say, is enough? 2 or 3?
2. I would say 2. Sometimes, if you jump internationally, you'll only be allowed to jump 1 class. You'll only be allowed to jump 1 horse per class. The only exceptions are the pre-sorts, I don't have a class. But I would say in the normal circumstances, I would take a horse, and I have jumped at 2 classes, say British Novice Discovery or newcomers and Fox Hunter. But sometimes I'll jump in 1 class. I was definitely no more than 2 classes.
So potentially if you do 4 rounds, if you go to jump off.
If you're in jump off, yeah. And then you have to warm up the practice fence, and then you have to.
What would you do for the shooting around there and a jump off? Would you completely throw the balls off?
What you
stand and then just warm up?
Yeah, it just depends on if you're near the end to go your first round. So say there was 30 in the class and you were 29 to go, and you jump the clear round, you come out and you walk around the collecting round, I would stay on horse because it's going to give the draw in a few minutes. Okay. If you were 30 in the class and you were 5th to go, you jump the clear round. I would walk around the collecting round a few times just to let it cool off, just to cool down, and then take them back and put in the box or I put a rubber in. It's amazing the amount of people that don't understand about put rocks on horses and why you put rocks on. It's not there to look pretty, they're there to get the muscles properly. I used to, when I jumped ages ago, I used to have a habit that before my horse went in the ring, if I warmed it up, and if I was standing waiting, we just go a rub over its quarters, just for the minute, it's a few minutes it was standing. And then the girls would take the rug off and I would go in the quarters. But you'll find there's no point in warming up around the collector. You have to put it back in the box, slack it back on. Even I take front boots off. If a horse is standing 2 minutes in the ring at a horse, if there's another 25 horses to go, you're going to be another hour waiting.
You see people just go sitting on them.
Yeah.
You know, the first to go, and then there's 30 in class, everyone's still sitting on the horses.
But this is why you might find that there's students that are coming into the collecting rings a bit more often, and they're going to monitor things like this, just for the welfare of the horse. But going back, I think it's common sense. You know if there's an hour to go, then put your horse away, put the rubber in, slacken it off. I remember just quickly, years and years ago, when I was jumping at Devon Leisure, and I was 50 in the class and I was first to go. And I came in and I had a horrible thing after that. I was paranoid about it. And I had a group that worked for me, very good, brilliant group. And I was sitting in the gallery and I jumped two or three horses and he came over and he said, Ron, you have to come to the lorry quick, this horse is kicking its stomach. And I'm thinking it's taking colic. So I immediately go and think I'm going to take colic. First thing I went to check was what? The girth. Checked the girth and it had the guy left the girth on it tight when I'd been in the ring. I didn't notice because I came out, walked it round, handed it to him because I had to get on the next horse. So it was my fault as well. I should have checked and put the girth out. From that day that happened, and I had 2 swellings on either side of the girth. From that day, I just always, every time I came out the ring, I used to say to him, make sure you slack this girth in. And the grooms were like, we do it every time. I was paranoid about it, and then I did, you know. But so again, this happened to me the other day in the collecting room. Walked around, got off the horse, and the lorry. And I went up and I said, "You give me stuff." "Oh yeah, I forgot." So I just immediately slapped it. And people forget stupid things like that. Do you know what I mean? It's all going down to it.
I don't think a lot of people now actually know these things. I think, like years ago, the majority of riders came up through Pony Club. They learned basic horse management. Now there's a huge amount of unaffiliated riders out there who haven't had that basic knowledge. And I think, I mean, we sit and discuss this in the council meetings at show jumping, that we're probably as guilty as anybody of not passing that knowledge on. Like the ruling now in collecting rings is you do not keep a horse in the collecting ring that is not actively warming up. So you can't hold them in the ring, you can't sit in the sit on the horse and stand in the corner and watch your pal jump the next ring. So, and I think that's something you should all take on board, that you know, the horse only has so many jumps and has only got so much energy, and it is not a grandstand for you to sit and watch your 10 pals jump your rounds. But I think we should all, Pony Clubs, riding clubs, everybody, that's the sort of thing we should be impacting. Well, we have voluntary stewards now. We do have. We only, well, it's cut because of our new chief executive. We only have 2 actual secondary stewards, but all of us as area reps and the judges, of course, we should all take on board that if anything's going on in the collecting room, that it's not right. But actually, there's no BS stewards at riding club. And I think that's probably the type of rider now, from all of us point of view. The welfare of the horse is important, and people are very quick to get on their iPad to learn about every disease under the sun. So when I go to diagnose something, they've already diagnosed it. But they're equally not as quick to actually learn the basics of horsemanship and care of their competition animal. And it doesn't matter whether you jump 2'6" or 150 metre, is it?
No, and I think the biggest thing, sorry to come back to that, is common sense is the biggest thing. It's like, you know, I even running yards that I've had done for years, I'll go in, it's like the other day, son. So I go in and my horses have maybe got 2 or 3 rugs on. So I'll say to the girls, okay, just take the top rugs off, they're obviously a bit hot. They go in and I put the jumper on. Okay, the next day they go in and they put the jacket on. And then I'll look in and say, why is that one got 2 rugs on? You told me yesterday to take it off. I went, yeah. And yesterday you had a t-shirt on, today you've got a jacket on. Why have you got a jacket? It's cold, exactly. Now go and put another rug on. So it's common sense. And I think coming up through the pony clubs, I never did, but coming up through the pony club, you learn a lot of things. Whereas now, I always remember just quickly someone that came into show jumping with ponies years ago and had a fancy lorry, X amount, all these fancy ponies, a lot of money ponies, standing at Gleneagles at the time, and they're all flipped out, and they're standing behind the wagon in the middle of the window. And I walked up and I said, and they were upstairs having coffee, and I said, but the ponies are standing out there. Yeah, and I'm waiting to jump off. And I went, yeah, but you've not got any rugs on them. Yeah, they're fine. And they were fully clipped. And these people don't actually understand. You know, they don't review into it. And we take a lot of things for granted. But common sense is, I think, the biggest thing that the benefits of.
The question waiting.
Yeah, it's about fitting. Does the panel feel that fitting is neglected these days, even in leisure horses? And how often do you see fitting-related injuries?
I think it's 2 issues. Conditioning and fitting are 2 separate things, although people often use one term to mean everything. So fitting is just pure fitness, is your cardiovascular ability to exercise without getting tired. And yes, we need to build up exercise levels if we want to do more work. Pleasure use is not terribly important. Conditioning is completely different, and even for pleasure use, yes, you need to condition the horse. And we touched on it a second ago about these young horses. So a young horse's bone, a yearling, a 2-year-old's cannon bone, is a completely different shape and density to an adult's, because the forces aren't going straight down the middle of the bone, so the bone changes. Similarly, tendons and ligaments, just like us, have to be warmed and stretched.
So conditioning as far as the skeleton or the musculoskeletal, the bones and the soft tissue, absolutely essential. But that's different from fitting work, which is trying to gain fitness so they can do more. Do we see injury? Of course we do. An awful lot of injuries we see either in younger developing horses or more mature horses are because of a lack of care and attention paid to warming the horses up, to having them in a genuine exercise program, which is why we often, after injuries happen, we write down an exercise program and we hope that the horse is safe enough to allow the person to do it for them. But it's there for reasons to gradually load and stretch and get the whole of the body moving again, just one injury. That's my waffle, sorry.
I have to say that I quite often get people saying, my horse has a higher energy feed because he's lazy. Right, okay. How's his conditions going? Oh well, he's a bit overweight. Right. If he's overweight, then yes, he is going to be lazy. So make sure that your horse is the correct weight for what you want it to do. And I think people, with the amount of information that's available now, people tend to go to extremes. I did have one horse last year which was absolutely emaciated because they didn't want to feed him too much, because they didn't want him to be fat because he was going to bend time. Now I'm very sorry dear, but you're going to have to get off and push him up the hill again because he's never going to make it. So make sure if your horse is lazy, is he overweight? If he is, you need to put him on a fitness program to tone him up, tighten him up, get him cardiovascularly fitter so that he then can do the job that you're wanting him to do. Don't ride him on a Wednesday, bring him out, expect him to jump 3 rounds on a Saturday and then chuck him back in the field again.
Yes?
I have a 16-year-old 13-2 pony, and when I'm jumping him, he's like really forward going into jumps. How can I control him?
Sorry. Can you hear that?
We're not doing
You said the pony's 14'2"?
13-2.
13'2".
Yeah.
And how old?
16.
16. And he's brushing his fences?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this in general, he rushes his fences all the time, or does he rush his fences at home and he's a bit easier in the ring?
All the time.
All the time. What do you ride him in just now?
What is it? A gag, yeah.
You ride him in a gag. The old-fashioned gag or the one, the...
3-ring gag.
Sorry?
A 3-ring gag.
3-ring, so the only thing I would say, when you say he rushes his fences, he just winds himself up a little bit and then just takes on the fence.
Yeah.
And then he sometimes will flatten and sometimes have it down.
Yeah.
Okay. What you need to do is you need to slow everything down, come round the corner, walk towards the fence, almost stop in front, don't pull him up in front of the fence, walk towards the fence, let him stand, okay? Pat up, keep the fence low, and then just let him pick up trot, pop the little fence. When he lands, again ask him back, make him do it, and then gradually build on that. Because if the more you keep jumping and going round and round, you see this time and time again, it will get faster and faster and faster. So again, take him right back at the beginning, slow him down. There are fences you can build to try and get them to slow down by doing grid work and poles and things like that. But the easiest solution I've found with horses that rush fences, just slow everything down, get yourself back to trot, right in front of the fence, pick up trot and then just pop the fence. And 9 out of 10, that gets someone to think about what they're doing. They don't just come around the corner and lock onto the fence. Okay?
I've got a question for Andrew. What are the differences and benefits of doing hot and cold shoeing?
There's a lot of the benefits are for me, actually, to be honest. I really don't want to be beaten cold to metal and actually just saw Farah yesterday who was a cold shoe for a long time and his knuckles are twice the size of the shoe and he's just these 40s. So yeah, I mean that's a big one, but it's a better fit. You know, you can see that you've burned it absolutely level. Whereas when you do it with a rasp, it's all just white and you can't may look level, but until you burn a shoe and go, wait a minute, there's a low piece there. and if it's not level, you know, the pitches are going to come up faster, and we've got issues. But the biggest one for me is definitely not beating a cold steel. You know, you just ease it round and it's hot, to be honest. You can do a good job and a bad job both ways. That's, you know, a definite.
We're just drawing to a close, so I'll ask a couple of questions.
Again, our 11-month-old foal, I get worried about him in the field that he's bored. We've got another horse, he's 20, so they're obviously together, but is there anything we should, like obviously our daughter can only go out at night when she comes in from school, but I just think, what, during the day he looks bored? Is it more I think he's bored than he's bored? You know, it's
unanimous with that. Buy him an iPad.
He's got a flat screen. I just always think that...
We'll need a special pair of gloves over the iPad before he does
So is it more me? Is he just as long as he's got hair, he's got some...
He's out. The most important thing is outside.
He is out.
He's being natural.
Right. And that's it. We don't have to do anything.
He's got a football, mate.
I don't know.